4 million used cars are about to flood the American market. Dealers are suffocating under daily interest costs. Banks are seizing vehicles by the thousands, and rental companies are unloading fleets like never before. The collapse isn't coming, it's already here. If you bought a car in the last 2 years, chances are you're sitting on a financial time bomb. Trucks that sold for $65,000 are now worth barely over $50,000. Sedans financed at record highs can't even be sold for half their loan value. And while families are stuck paying an average of $733 a month for cars that are bleeding value every week, dealerships themselves are spiraling toward bankruptcy. But here's the shocking part. This wasn't just bad luck or market forces. The bubble was built by design. Automakers, lenders, and rental giants all played a role in squeezing buyers dry. And now the same system that inflated prices is set to implode. For most, it will be financial disaster. But for a small group who understands what's happening, this storm could be the opportunity of a lifetime. Back in 2020, something strange happened to the car market. What had always been one of the fastest appreciating purchases suddenly flipped upside down. A car in your driveway wasn't losing value anymore. It was gaining it. A Ram 1500 that should have sold for around $35,000 before the pandemic was suddenly commanding $48,000. A Honda Accord that should have been worth less every year somehow climbed in price just for existing. Even basic Camrys, the definition of boring but reliable, were selling for more used than their brand new counterparts. Cars stopped being expenses and turned into investments, a complete reversal of decades of automotive reality. For everyday people, this shift was dizzying. Sarah, a nurse in Phoenix, spent months searching for a reliable sedan, only to watch prices climb each week. The Accord she wanted at $28,000 jumped to $31,000 in a matter of weeks, leaving her feeling like she was chasing a mirage. Meanwhile, Mike, a contractor from Ohio, thought he was playing it smart by locking in a Ford F-250 at $64,000, convinced prices could only go higher. He didn't know that less than 2 years later, that exact truck would sit on dealer lots for $51,000. What looked like a golden era of rising values was really a fragile bubble, and cracks were already forming beneath the surface. The bubble couldn't last forever, and by late 2023 the air started rushing out. Dealers that once had buyers lining up at the door suddenly found their lots sitting full. That Ford F-250 Mike paid $64,000 for was now being listed at $53,000, with no takers. The same Honda Accord families financed at nearly $40,000 could barely move at $24,000. What had been treated like gold during the pandemic was turning back into lead overnight. Buyers who thought they'd locked in a smart investment realized they were trapped holding vehicles worth thousands less than what they owed. The pain wasn't just in resale value. Monthly payments hit record highs, averaging $733 across the country. For many families, that wasn't a car payment, it was a second mortgage. And as values collapsed, negative equity spread like wildfire. Millions of Americans found themselves underwater, stuck paying for cars they couldn't sell or trade without swallowing huge losses. The market that once made people feel rich was now leaving them poorer than ever. And the worst part was that this crash had only just begun. The collapse might look like a natural market cycle, but the truth runs deeper. This wasn't random, it was engineered. Automakers tightened production, blaming chip shortages, while deliberately slowing the number of new vehicles rolling out. With fewer cars hitting lots, demand went wild, and even the most basic sedans turned into bidding wars. At the same time, the Federal Reserve's near-zero interest rates flooded the market with cheap loans. Dealers pushed 7-year financing like candy on Halloween, locking families into payments that looked manageable at first but were designed to stretch wallets thin. Then came the rental car giants. Normally, these companies cycle out hundreds of thousands of vehicles each year, feeding the used market with affordable options. But during the pandemic, they hoarded their fleets and even started competing directly with regular buyers at auctions. Instead of a steady stream of gently used cars, supply dried up, and prices skyrocketed even higher. Every link in the chain, from factories to lenders to rental companies, played a part in building the bubble. And while corporations reported record profits, regular Americans were left fighting over scraps, unknowingly standing on the edge of a cliff. Most people don't realize that dealerships don't actually own the cars sitting on their lots. Every vehicle is financed through what's called floor plan credit, a massive revolving loan that allows dealers to stock inventory without paying up front. On the surface, it sounds like a smart system, but when cars stop moving, it turns into a financial noose. Each unsold car racks up $20 to $45 in daily interest. For a mid-sized dealer carrying 200 vehicles, that can mean more than $180,000 a month in interest before a single sale is made. When inventory sat for less than 2 weeks during the pandemic, nobody noticed. But now, with cars gathering dust for months, those interest costs eat away at every ounce of profit. Some dealers are watching their spreadsheets with growing panic. A truck that sits for 90 days can rack up nearly $3,000 in financing charges, wiping out whatever margin was left. To stop the bleeding, many are slashing prices just to move metal, even if it means selling at a loss. Others are begging national chains to buy up inventory at wholesale, hoping to survive another month. The result is a vicious cycle. The longer cars sit, the more interest piles up, and the faster dealers are forced to discount. The very system that once kept lots stocked is now pushing thousands of dealerships toward closure. And with 1 in 4 expected to disappear within the next year, the collapse is only accelerating. While dealerships struggle with unsold inventory, another tidal wave is building on the consumer side: repossessions. Every single day in America, more than 15,000 cars are seized from their owners. That adds up to over 1.7 million repossessions in a single year, the highest level since the financial crash of 2009. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're nurses, delivery drivers, and single parents waking up to find their car gone before sunrise, stripped away because payments became impossible to keep up with. The repo truck doesn't care whether it was a lost job or a medical bill that caused the default. It just takes the keys and drives off. The situation is worst for subprime borrowers, the very group pushed hardest into risky loans during the boom. In early 2025, delinquency rates among subprime auto loans hit 6.6%, the highest ever recorded. Families already living paycheck to paycheck are now underwater by an average of $6,700 on repossessed cars, with many still owing $11,000 or more after the auction hammer falls. And those repossessed vehicles don't vanish. They flood back into the used car market, lining up at auctions next to unsold dealer stock. The more that arrive, the lower prices sink, dragging down values for everyone else still trying to hold on. For dealers and consumers alike, the repo wave isn't just a symptom, it's gasoline on the fire. Hidden inside the Inflation Reduction Act was a small technicality that turned into a market earthquake. By classifying leased electric vehicles as commercial sales, automakers and banks could claim a $7,500 federal tax credit on every lease, then pass part of that savings on to drivers. The result was an explosion of cheap EV leases. In 2022, only about 15% of new electric cars left dealer lots as leases. By early 2025, that number had soared to nearly 70%. It looked like a win for adoption, but underneath it created a time bomb. Millions of electric cars were placed on short, artificially affordable leases, and all of them are scheduled to come back in a tight 3-year window. When those leases end, the flood begins. In 2026 alone, over 300,000 electric vehicles are projected to hit the used market, climbing to more than 600,000 by 2027. But there's a bigger problem. EVs don't hold value like traditional gas cars. Rapid tech upgrades, steep price cuts from companies like Tesla, and lingering concerns about battery life have already driven resale prices down 20–30% below original sticker. That means a $50,000 electric SUV leased in 2023 could be worth barely $35,000 when it returns. Dealers will be stuck trying to unload thousands of nearly new EVs that no one wants at the old price, adding yet another wave of pressure to a market already buckling under repossessions and rental sell-offs. If repossessions and lease returns weren't enough, the rental giants have thrown gasoline on the fire. In 2021, Hertz made headlines by ordering 100,000 Teslas, betting that electric vehicles would be the future of their fleet. But by 2025, the gamble backfired. depreciation hit harder than expected, and Hertz reported nearly $400 million in quarterly losses, with EVs alone chewing up half that number. Their solution was drastic: dump 40,000 electric vehicles all at once, flooding the used market with cars already falling in value. And Hertz isn't alone. Across the industry, rental companies are rotating millions of vehicles each year, unloading late-model cars that used to fetch premium prices. For dealers, this rental fire sale is a nightmare. Auction lots are now stacked with rows of low-mileage sedans and SUVs, many barely a year or two old, selling for thousands less than they did new. Buyers who once fought over these cars now know they can wait for deeper discounts, pushing prices lower every week. Each wave of ex-rental cars drags down the value of everything else sitting on dealer lots, from compact cars to full-size trucks. What started as one company's desperate move to survive has turned into a chain reaction that's rewriting the rules of the used car market. And for the first time in decades, even the best-maintained vehicles are becoming liabilities instead of assets. For millions of Americans, the crash isn't just about falling prices, it's about being trapped in loans that no longer make sense. Nearly 4 in 10 borrowers are now underwater, meaning they owe more on their car than it's worth. Mike's $64,000 Ford F-250 is the perfect example. Barely 2 years later, it's worth around $45,000, leaving him $15,000 in the hole before he's even halfway through his loan. Families across the country are facing the same math, with trucks, SUVs, and sedans all losing value faster than payments can catch up. The wealth that was pumped into this bubble didn't disappear, it shifted. Automakers, banks, and dealers walked away with record profits, while regular buyers are left holding the bag. The nightmare is that there's no easy way out. Selling means writing a check for thousands just to walk away. Refinancing is nearly impossible when values are dropping every month. And trading in, dealers won't touch cars that leave them instantly upside down. For many, the only option is to keep paying on vehicles that bleed value with every passing week, hoping to outlast the collapse. It's a slow-motion drain on household finances, locking families into years of payments on assets that feel more like anchors than lifelines. And with the flood of inventory still building, the hole only gets deeper. All the pressure points, repos, lease returns, rental liquidations, and unsold dealer stock, are now converging into a single tidal wave. By 2026, more than 4 million used vehicles will pour into the market in 1 year alone. That includes 1.7 million repossessed cars, nearly 330,000 lease returns, and over 2 million rental fleet units, all stacked on top of the inventory dealers are already desperate to unload. It's the largest surge of used cars America has ever faced, and there's no safety net to stop the free fall. Every new wave of vehicles forces prices lower, which pushes more owners underwater, which in turn creates even more repossessions. For dealers, this is the breaking point. Floor plan interest keeps rising, margins keep shrinking, and buyers have no reason to rush when they know cheaper deals are coming. Communities that once relied on local dealerships are starting to lose them altogether, with projections showing up to a quarter of used car dealers shutting their doors within the year. The market that once seemed invincible is collapsing under its own weight. What started as a bubble during the pandemic has turned into a flood that will reshape the auto industry, and it's only just beginning. For most people, the collapse feels like disaster, but for a small group of buyers, it's shaping up to be the chance of a lifetime. Dealers who once played hardball are now desperate to move metal, often selling at a loss just to keep the lights on. Trucks that carried $10,000 markups in 2023 are suddenly being listed for thousands below book value. Electric vehicles leased at $55,000 are coming back onto the market at $30,000 or less. For anyone with cash in hand, the leverage has shifted. Auctions that were once dominated by fleet buyers are now wide open for regular consumers willing to step in at the right moment. Even if you need financing, the advantage is still yours. Dealers burdened by daily interest charges are willing to negotiate on everything: price, interest rates, extras, anything to get cars off their lots before the next bill comes due. It's a market where patience pays, and informed buyers can walk away with deals not seen in decades. While the majority struggle with negative equity and collapsing values, those who understand the timing can turn this manufactured collapse into the car deal of a generation. The question isn't whether the flood is coming, it's whether you'll be ready to take advantage of it. The signs couldn't be clearer. What started as a pandemic boom has unraveled into the biggest used car collapse in modern history. Dealers are being strangled by floor plan interest, repossessions are flooding auctions, EV leases are returning by the hundreds of thousands, and rental companies are unloading fleets at fire sale prices. Families are trapped in loans they can't escape, and communities are watching local dealerships shut their doors. The wealth that shifted into corporate profits during the boom years has left ordinary buyers holding the debt. This isn't just a correction, it's a full-blown reset of the auto market. But hidden inside this collapse is opportunity. Prices that once seemed untouchable are crumbling by the week, and for buyers who know where to look, it's a once-in-a-generation chance to secure deals we may never see again. The flood isn't coming, it's already here. The only question left is whether you'll be crushed under it, or whether you'll step in and use it to your advantage. In our next video, we'll break down which models are dropping the fastest, the timing strategies that can save you thousands, and the negotiation tactics that will have dealers fighting for your business. The market as we knew it is dead, and for the informed buyer, that's the best news of all.